Hey everyone, Mark here. I have a favor to ask you before I start the show. My podcast has been submitted to the 2018 People's Choice Podcast Award, and I need your help to become one of the 10 finalists nominated for judging. Resourceful Designer was a finalist in 2016 and 2017, but I didn't take home the award, and I'm hoping this is my year, but I need your help to do it. To become a finalist, I need you to nominate the show. It is called the People's Choice Podcast Awards after all. Here's what I need you to do. Visit resourcefuldesigner.com/podcast awards. Now near the top of the page, there's a gray banner with the words listener nomination now open. Click on that banner and register your email address and confirm your registration via the email you will receive from them. Now I promise you they won't spam you or anything. It's just to ensure that every person can only nominate once, or at least once per email address. If you have more than one email address, it's entirely up to you. Now, once you've registered, please select Resourceful Designer in the Arts category. You can also select Resourceful Designer in the People's Choice category if you like, but it's really the Arts category that I'm going after. Now, feel free to select any podcast that you listen to from the other categories. And once you're satisfied with your selections, simply click the Save Nominations button at the bottom of the page, and then you're done. Now, nominations are open until July 31st, 2018, so don't wait. Get your votes in today. I want to thank you in advance for your nominations, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that I become a finalist for the third year in a row, and if everything goes my way, this is my year to win the award. And now, on with the show. Resourceful Designer, episode 128. You can't rationalize value.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He buys more software than he'll ever need. Mark DeCote.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for plugging me in your ears and spending a little bit of time with me as we discuss running a graphic design business. Now, talk about ironic. 2 episodes ago, in episode 126, I talked about when life interferes with your design business. Well, shortly after that episode, actually a couple of days after that episode came out, life interfered with mine. First of all, when it came to the podcast, as you may have heard me mention previously, I have my nephew who's an audio engineer. He edits my podcast for me. Well, Justin was in a little bit of an accident and he's out for a little bit. He is recovering. But in the meantime, he was not able to edit my podcast. And that's why there was 1 week where no episode actually came out. And you may notice, if you've been listening for a while, the past couple of episodes have sounded a little bit different because I'm doing my own editing until he's back on his feet. And I don't have the same setup that he does. So I'm doing my best. But then on top of that, my dad, who has been deteriorating in health lately, he's 91 years old, we finally got notice that a bed opened up for him at a nursing home. He was in a retirement home before, and the difference is in a retirement home, you're supposed to be independent. It's for seniors, but seniors who can do stuff on their own. Well, my dad was at the point where he couldn't do anything on his own anymore. He needed help all the time. And they were charging us much more than the normal fee for the extra help he required. And he was there until a bed opened up at a nursing home. Well, we finally got the call there. So again, I had to put my business on hold while I made all the arrangements to get my dad moved over, all the paperwork and everything. So during that 1 week, so many things happened. And it's ironic because that's the week that I talked about what happens when life interferes with your design business. And it did affect some of my clients. I missed the deadline, a launch window for a website. Now, as soon as this came down, not the podcast stuff, but as soon as the stuff happened with my dad, and I knew that I was going to have to take a few days off in order to do all that stuff, I contacted my client and let them know, and they were good with it. It was not a launch window for anything particular. It's just that was the window whenever we signed the contract. We stated that was when the website was going to launch, and we were right on schedule for everything. But then life interfered, and the website is now launched. The client is very happy, and there was no issues. They fully understood. So as I said in that issue, first thing you do, notify your clients. They understand. They know that stuff happens in life, and the reason they're hiring you is because they want to work with you. If they didn't want to take these chances, they would hire an agency that had lots and lots of people there so that if one person is sick or couldn't do it, there'd be somebody else to take over. But no, they chose to work with you for a reason. So that's been my last couple of weeks, and now things are finally getting back on track. My dad is in the nursing home now, and he's actually doing much better. I've seen a huge improvement in his health since he's been there. They're taking a more of an interest in him. They're getting him up. They're getting him to activities. So a big turnaround. So I'm very, very happy with that. So that's been what's happening with me the past couple of weeks. Now, if you're new to the podcast and this is the first time you're tuning in, you're saying, what's this guy talking about? I thought this was a design podcast. Well, I always start off every podcast trying to let people know what I've been up to before moving on to the meat and grind of the episode. Now, if you are just tuning in, or you're listening on the website or whatever, do you know that there's actually an app for Resourceful Designer? Whether you're on Apple or an Android device, go to your respective app store and search for Resourceful Designer, and you can download the app. It's one of the easiest way to consume the podcast. And what I love about the app is you can actually favorite your episodes that you like. So if there's an episode that has something that you might want to listen to again in the future, you can put a star next to it, and then you have a favorites list of the episodes you like. So if you want to give it a try, download the app. Now, normally at this point in the episode, I would share a resource of the week. But instead of a resource, I want to ask you a question. This is episode 128 of the podcast. And in all this time, I've covered lots of different topics about running a graphic design business. And even though I do have a long list of other things I want to talk about, I'd really like to know if there's any topics you would like me to talk about in a future episode. So instead of a resource, I'm putting out a question to you. Can you please send me an email at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com, or you can use the form on the website if you go to resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and fill out that form, and let me know what sort of things you'd like me to discuss in a future episode. Because as much as I'm doing this for me, I'm doing this mostly for you. So I want to ensure I'm giving you the best value possible. Now, speaking of value, I just want to thank everybody who is supporting Resourceful Designer on Patreon. It means so much to me that you have pledged to help the show on a monthly basis. And it doesn't matter if you're pledging $1, $5, $10, whatever it is, it means so much. It helps cover the costs of hosting the show, the media hosting, and the website for Resourceful Designer, and some of my time that I take out of my day. Instead of designing, I sit down, I get ready for the episode, and I prep it. And now with Justin incapacitated right now, I'm also editing the show. So that little bit does help me out. So thank you for everyone who is a Patreon supporter. And if you would like to support the show, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. And for as little as $1 a month, you too can support the show. And now, today's topic. You can't rationalize value. It's a fact that most designers don't get paid what they're worth. And the reason they don't is because they rationalize the value of the services they provide. And what I mean by this, what I mean by today's title, is that they try to justify to their clients why they're charging the prices that they do. And they usually do this by either itemizing what's involved with their creation or just trying to back up the reason for their prices. And some designers automatically think, okay, I'm quoting on a logo. Well, a logo will cost this amount of dollars because it'll take me X amount of hours to research and do the discovery. Then it'll take me another Y amount of hours to develop and finalize the logo. And since my hourly rate is Z, then the cost of the logo is X plus Y times Z. And there's the price. And you know what? This does work for many designers, and they're happy with this formula. But the problem with using this scenario, and it's what a lot of designers do use, but the problem is you're simply trading time for money. Yes, time for money is a tried and true method across many industries all over the world. But it really shouldn't be used for design. Or let me say that at least it shouldn't be the sole method of calculating what you charge for design. How much you earn while running a graphic design business should not be related to how many hours you put in. It should be related to the value you are providing to your clients. I mean, face it, we live in a world where we assign dollar amounts to most services. You get a haircut, it costs this much. You take a cab ride downtown, it costs this much. You need to have your car serviced, it costs this much. But even those things, simple things like that, have variations based on the value. My daughter had her hair colored recently. It's not the first time she's done this. She's changed her hair color many times over the years. And this time, what was different though, is instead of going to the normal salon that she's been going to, she decided to go to a different salon. And she went there because she heard that the man that runs this salon has a really good reputation for his excellence and just what he does. So the perceived value that she got by going to this new place was worth the much higher price that she paid to get her hair colored. I mean, when she told me the price, it was more than double what she had been paying at her other place. And in the end, she did get her new hair color. She paid a lot more, but my daughter thinks that it was worth it. She loves her new look. She's getting tons of compliments from everybody about the way she looks now. So to her, the perceived value of going to this guy as opposed to the woman that she used to go to was worth the extra money. The same scenario can apply to cars. When you have a problem with your vehicle, you can take it to a privately owned garage or maybe a national chain such as, a Walmart garage, or here in Canada, we have Canadian Tire. You can take it to one of those garages, or you can take your car to the dealership. Now, from my experience, the dealership is always more expensive. But think of it from a value perspective. If you drive a Honda, who is more equipped, who is more knowledgeable about your car than a Honda dealership? That perceived value is why some people are willing to pay more to have their car serviced at the dealership, because they perceive the value of the people there knowing exactly how to deal with their particular car. But what does this have to do with your design business? Well, the services that you provide as a web designer or as a graphic designer, they're not commodities. They're not the same as going to get a haircut or going to get an oil change. There is no one price fits all, or at least there shouldn't be. Designing a logo for a local bricklayer should not cost the same as designing a logo for a regional airline, because the logos bring different values to each client. And by that I mean the representation that the logo brings to each client affects them in a different way. You may design a great logo for the bricklayer, but what's he really going to do with it? He'll stick it on the side of his truck, maybe on his business card, maybe he'll have it stitched onto his shirt. But that may be all he ever does with it. Most of his work is going to come via word of mouth from referrals from satisfied clients, or some of his work will come through contractors who hire him to do bricklaying. So what the logo you design looks like may not have that much impact on the overall business that he's running. An airline, on the other hand, is going to plaster their logo on everything in order to bring awareness to their brand, to their business. They'll put it on their planes, they'll put it on their building, it'll be on every single person's uniform that works there, it'll be on the tickets that their passengers purchase, it'll even be on the cups and the napkins that they serve on the planes. And that's not counting the marketing campaign, the vast money they're going to invest in order to get their airline known. Their logo will be shown absolutely everywhere. It's a competitive market and they need to be seen. And over time, the logo that you designed will come to represent a good, reliable airline that offers quality flights with courteous, friendly staff. Now, for that reason alone, the airline's logo should cost way more than the bricklayer's logo. And it doesn't matter if both logos took the exact same amount of time to design. Their value is different. And yet many designers would still charge both clients solely on the time they spent designing the logos. When you start trying to rationalize what it is you do by focusing on the things like the time and the effort you put in, you're actually lowering the value of the service you provide. This rationalization devalues what design is all about. Design is about vision. Design is about emotional impact. It's giving a visual voice to whatever it is the design represents. It's about problem solving. Both the bricklayer and the airline needed a logo, but the problem that logo is solving for each company is vastly different. Instead of rationalizing your pricing, trying to explain it to your clients, showing them every little thing that you're charging for in order to justify why your prices are X amount, you need to instead explain to your clients how they benefit from your designs, how design is an investment and not just an expense. And when done right and with a proper focus, a well-implemented design can actually help skyrocket a company's growth. When explained that way, a client can see the value you bring them. Now, will there be backlash if you do it this way? Well, of course they will. I mean, some clients will counter you and say, "You're crazy. I could have someone on Fiverr design my logo for a fraction of your price." And yes, they absolutely could. And what would they get back in return? A hopefully pretty looking logo, something that is somewhat well designed, something that may or may not be similar to other businesses out there. You're always taking a chance. But at least the logo they get will fulfill their rationalized expectation of getting a logo for as cheap as possible. But what that client won't get is the conviction, a design that truly represents their company's voice, the tone that they want to present to the world, something that will truly represent them and everything their company does. That's the value that they're paying you for. The logo itself, the actual image, is only a part of the overall picture. You're creating a feeling, an emotion, a representation of an overall company. You're not just designing a picture for them. And if you can comfortably show your clients the value that you provide them, if you can show them how you are focusing on the desired outcome they want to achieve with the design and not just on the design itself, when you're able to successfully convey that message to your clients, they won't question your price because they'll know that it's an investment that they're making and not just a purchase. So if you want to grow your design business, you need to stop exchanging your time for money. Stop rationalizing value. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I would love to know. Please leave me a comment for this episode by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 128. And now, this week's question of the week. Now, this week's question comes from Adam, and it's something that I actually pulled from the Facebook group. It's a question that Adam asked in the group. And if you're not a member of the group, you can join by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/group and answering my 3 questions to join. If you don't answer the questions, I will decline you. And every day I get people asking to join that don't answer my questions, and I simply decline their request. So make sure you answer the questions if you want in. But in the group, Adam asked, he says, "I've recently quoted for a web design and development job. After the project is finished, I've quoted a monthly fee that covers ongoing updates, consultations, domain, web hosting, and the email addresses. The client is saying that my price is a bit too high and is wondering how I calculated my price. I don't necessarily calculate my price numerically, but rather set it based on the value to the client and what I believe my services are worth. The client mentioned that July to December is typically quite slow for updates, and so would like to see a reduced price for the second half of the year. Any suggestions would be appreciated." Well, thanks for posting that question in the group, Adam. I see a few replies that you've received, but I thought I'd pipe in my answer here on the podcast. The way I see it is your client is trying to haggle with you, and that is something that I never do. I would just stick to your guns. Whatever price you have is what you have, and if the client wants it, so be it, they'll take it, and if they don't, then that's their prerogative. Now, you said it right in your question that you base your prices on the value that you perceive. And it's funny because this episode, this topic of today's podcast was on that, is on don't rationalize value. And that's what your client is actually asking you to do, is rationalize your value. So I wouldn't do it. I would just say, here is what I do. I provide these services for you at this price so that you don't have to worry about it. You have the peace of mind of knowing that your website is always up to date, that everything is taken care of, that I'm here for you whenever you need me, and so forth. What you're selling them on a monthly basis is peace of mind. It's not X amount of hours or a certain service. It's peace of mind so that they don't have to worry about it. You will worry about it. And as for lowering your price during slow times, I would explain to them that it's similar to a car payment. You don't pay less for your monthly car payment if you're not driving your car that month. The payment is still the same. It doesn't matter. Well, it's the same principle behind what you're offering. It doesn't matter if things get slow or if things get busy. It's the same service you're offering. And in the end, everything will work out. It evens out over the course of a year. So I would stick to my guns. If the client doesn't like it, yeah, you said you're quoting on this project, and I don't know if this is something you really need to get, but if you're quoting on the project and the client doesn't like it, they don't like it and they'll go somewhere else. And you just have to be okay with that. But stick to your guns. Now, one thing that you can do, and I have mentioned this in previous podcasts, is you are offering a monthly fee. Well, you could always say, okay, well, if you think that's a little bit high, how about this? You pay for an entire year in advance. And I'll give you a discount. I'll give you maybe 1 month free or 2 months free if you pay for the entire year. And sometimes that's worth it. You can say that you're paying X amount of dollars per month, but if they pay for 10 months, I'll give you the extra 2 for free. A lot of clients do that, and you get all that money up front. And you also know that you've got the client for at least a year. So that is another option that you can try where you're not actually discounting your prices, you're giving them a bonus. So I hope that helps, Adam. Thank you for posting the question in the Facebook group. I didn't have any submissions for the podcast, so that's why I decided to go to the group and pull a question from there. But I would love to get your questions so that I can answer them on a future episode of the podcast. Please visit the website at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit your question. So that's it for this week's episode. I want to remind you that instead of a design resource this week, I did ask you a question. What sort of topics would you like me to discuss or cover in a future episode of the podcast? Please send me an email at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com, or you can use that same form at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback to submit topic ideas there. So thank you very much. I always appreciate you tuning in and listening to me. And until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.